We are at the beginning of a really important week on Capitol Hill. You already know about the House Select Committee hearing tomorrow on the January 6th insurrection, but also consider this, what the Associated Press is calling a, quote, make or break week for a new infrastructure package in the Senate. The goal was to have a bill finished by today, but despite offers and counteroffers, there are now worries about a more prolonged stalemate. Not only that, there's pressure mounting on the issue of voting rights as well today, without any significant progress on federal reform. Lawmakers woke up to headlines like this one from Politico about what they're calling a concern bordering on alarm. Quote, we're effed. Democrats fear turnout catastrophe from GOP voting laws. Joining us now is independent Senator Angus King of Maine. He's part of the group negotiating that infrastructure bill. And Claire McCaskill, we'll get to the infrastructure bill, but I can't read a quote that colorful without asking you why there isn't any activity or work or effort or strategizing on voting rights, or is there that we just don't see?
Well, there is. As a matter of fact, I'm going to a meeting in about 25 minutes on that very subject and how to move forward on the voting rights question. I got to tell you, Nicolle, as an independent, I don't understand a political party basically saying, we're not going to worry too much about the quality of our candidates or our ideas. We're just going to keep a bunch of people from voting. I mean, that's a kind of sad commentary, I think, if that's where you are as a party, and that's what's happening around the country. And it's a shame. I mean, it's not consistent with who we are. Maine is a state that we have no voter ID. We have no excuse absentee voting. We have mail-in voting. We have drop boxes, and we have virtually no fraud. These opening up the electoral process doesn't encourage fraud. It encourages voting. And I always thought that was the idea.
You know, I think the sentiment among Democrats, though, is, and to quote Maya Angelou, I mean, the Republicans have shown you who they are. Shouldn't we believe them? I mean, that is who they are. They are against voting, and they are against voting among minorities because they don't tend to vote for Republicans. Is it time for Democrats to sort of come to the fight that the Republicans seem to be winning? They've very successfully passed almost 24 voting restrictions, and they have 389 of them pending in 48 states.
Well, I think it's time to talk about voting rights, and we had a hearing and a markup in the Rules Committee. I had quite a day with sitting right across from Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell, and there's a lot of good elements to S1. I think some of it is probably not necessary, but we're trying to work out with Joe Manchin and others a bill that will be effective. But here's one of the problems, Nicolle, I can tell you, is it's sort of like whack-a-mole. It's very hard to craft a national bill that will anticipate all the various ways that these folks in various states are coming up with to restrict voting. And a lot of it isn't really apparent. A friend of mine in Maine said, you know, this doesn't look like such a big problem. But if you analyze what they did, in Georgia, for example, it'll lead to much longer lines, 5-6 hour lines in minority communities and half-hour lines in the suburban communities. And that's the kind of, it's very subtle, and this is hard to get a national law that will really be protective against this attack that's coming from so many directions.
So, Angus, I'm curious, has Schumer threatened yet to keep everyone there through August if we don't get a bipartisan infrastructure bill in writing by sundown tomorrow night?
Well, it's pretty close, yes. I think he has said exactly that. And talking about staying through weekends and staying into the August, what we call the home state work period. So yes, that's a very realistic possibility. And the infrastructure bill has just been dragging and dragging. My father used to say the Pentagon was the only building in the country you could drive straight towards, and it kept getting further away. And that's the way I feel about this infrastructure bill. I keep hearing that, you know, we're on the 2-yard line. We had a meeting of the group on, I think, Thursday, and yeah, it was really close. And then all of a sudden there are new problems that arise. One of the problems, Nicolle, is there's a there's a group of 10 that have done the principal negotiations. Then there's a larger group that I'm a member of 22 that have been sort of working along and approving and moving in and out of these negotiations. But now we're having people who aren't a member of either of those groups come in and say, well, wait a minute, I have a problem with the way you're doing the transit, or I have the problem with the way you're doing, some of the airports or something. So it keeps it keeps coming together and then unraveling, and time is running out. The framers designed this system to be cumbersome and slow, and they succeeded beyond their but beyond their wildest dreams. One other piece, and I think I'd like to hear Claire's thoughts on this. I sometimes think of the Senate as a high school football team that hasn't won a game in 5 years. We've forgotten how to win. We've forgotten how to do this. Claire, do you know what I'm talking about?
Listen, I think it's even more serious than that. We have members of the Senate that have never participated in a full debate with amendments on the floor of the Senate, and they've been there for years. It is really a problem the way the leadership has husbanded all the power and written all the bills, in committee and not allowed the Senate to fully debate and amend. If this process would get opened up, maybe they could learn how to win again, Angus. But you're exactly right. The senators have forgotten how to be senators.
Senator Angus King, Claire McCaskill, I could listen to the two of you talk about the Senate as a high school football team that hasn't won in 5 years forever. We'll do this again.